Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial, and today we'll be learning how to make a basic half bodice. And for this tutorial, all you need is your pattern paper, your pattern master, your measuring tape, your marker, pair of scissors, and of course your measurements. So if you're ready, let's get started. Pattern paper using my bust measurements divided by 4. Then I added 1 inch extra allowance by the side. So the first step is to rule your length. I'll start by ruling a line here, and this line will be my shoulder line. From my shoulder line, I'll mark my shoulder slant, which is 1.5. From my shoulder slant, I'll mark my across front length, which is 4.5. Then I'll go back to my shoulder line and mark my chest, which is 8.5. I'll mark my bust, which is 10. And then finally, I'll mark my half length, which is 17. So I'm going to rule the lines and label them also. Then the next step is to mark my neck width on my shoulder line. And my neck width is 6, so 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then on my shoulder slant line, I'm now going to mark my shoulder measurement. And my shoulder is 15. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. On my across front line, I'm going to mark my across front width. And my across front width is 13. So 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. And on my chest, I'm going to mark my bust measurement. My bust is 36. 36 divided by 4 is 9. I'll mark the same measurement on the busts. And on the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch. The 1 inch I'm adding is for the darts. So my waist is 29. 29 divided by 4 is 7.25. So I'm going to mark 8.25. So I'll first connect my shoulder, my neck width to my shoulder slants. So, and then I'll use a curved part to connect my shoulder slants to my across front. And then connect it to my chest. And then after that, I'll connect my chest to my bust and my bust to my waist. Then I'm going to add my ease allowance of 1/4, which is optional. So I'm just going to add it when you're making an outfit with a sleeve. You include it in your pattern. So now I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple, which is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'm going to mark it on my bust and on my waist. I'll use a straight line to connect them. And so on my waist, I'll mark the 1/2 inch on both sides of the line. On my bust, I'm going to mark 1 inch below. No dart should touch your bust line. And then I'm just going to connect it this way. And for the English darts, there are 2 types. You can either have the English dart or the French dart. So the English dart is a dart that comes on the bust line, while the French dart comes from the under bust line. So I'm going to use this marker to show you how to put an English dart, and I'll use a pen to show you how to put a French dart. So for an English dart, all you need to do is to mark 1/2 inch above and below your bust line. You mark 1.5 inch on this side, and then you connect it. So from this pattern, I will just put the neck of my choice. Just put a basic round neck. And like this, you have your half bodice front pattern. For the French dart, you have to pick your under bust point, and my other bust is 13.5. So this is my under bust point. So all you need to do is you draw a line, you connect your under bust to this 1.5 inch mark. So you are still going to mark this 1.5 inch here. So all you need to do is draw this line this way, and then you mark 1/2 inch on both sides, and then you connect it. So when making your bodice, you can either decide to use the French darts or the English darts. They all do the same job. So whichever one you prefer for your style. So if you're ready, let's go to the back pattern. For the back, I'll start by drawing this line as usual to mark my shoulder line, and then I'm going to mark my zip allowance, which will be 1 inch. So I'm just going to mark 1 inch. Then I will mark the rest of the length. So as usual, I'll mark my shoulder slant, which is meant to be 1.5, but like I've said earlier, the back shoulder slant is usually 1/4 inch shorter than the front. So instead of having 1.5, I'm going to have 1.25. And on that same point, I'm going to mark my across back length, which is 5.5. Then I'll go back to my shoulder line and then mark my chest, which is 8.5, my bust, which is 10, and my half length is no longer going to be 17, it's going to be 16. So if you don't know the reason why my waist length is now 16 instead of 17, let's go back to the front pattern. So looking at this front pattern, you can see that there is a dart here. Practically, this dart automatically shortens the waist, the front waist length by 1 inch. So instead of having 17, you're automatically going to have 16 when you put either this dart or you apply this dart or this dart. It's automatically going to shorten my waist. On my shoulder line, I'll mark my neck width of 3 inches, mark my shoulder 7.5. On my across back, I'll mark my across back width of 14. It's bigger than the front. On my chest, I'll mark my bust of 9 inch. Same thing applies to my bust line. And on my waist, I'll mark 8.25, just like I did at the front. So I'm just going to connect them. So this is how you straight up connect this. Then I'm going to pass on my another. So this is my fold. And then I'm going to connect it to my chest this way. Okay. Then I mark for my back dart. I'm going to use the middle of my across front. So my across front is 7. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'm going to mark 3.5 on my waist and on my bust. Connect the points. Mark my back dart of 1/2 inch on both sides. And then connect it. In order for us to finally get the exact back length that I want, remember that my front waist length is 17 and my back waist length is 15. So but I have managed to shorten it towards 16, so I still have 1 more inch left. So all you have to do is from this zip part, you mark 1 inch upward. You do the same at the dart line. You will then connect this straight, and then after the dart, you use this slant to bring it down to the original waistline. So now I have my back waist length that is 15, which is going to prevent me from having excess on my waistline, and this side is going to fit perfectly with the front. So from here you can decide to put the neck of your choice. So as usual, we'll just put a v-neck for this tutorial. And so sorry, I forgot to label the zip allowance and also add the 1/4 inch allowance for the sleeves. Then I have also managed to label the back waist side with a scissor sign showing you where to cut. And please don't forget I used my measurements to create this pattern, so when you use yours you might have little difference. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and it was very helpful and insightful. So please do well to subscribe, like, share this video and turn on your notification. And if you have any question, please drop it in the comment section. I'm ready and happy to answer your questions. Bye.